Hi, I am coming to you tonight to discuss the video reflection for week 3, SPED 5053. The first thing we discussed was titled Transition. Next year is now, and about how middle school is tough. Compare it to current middle school versus when I went to middle school way back in the 80s. What can we do to foster a positive transition to any grade? And what can we do to make sure our students feel welcome? In the context of special education, I would have to say that I think students, especially those with severe disabilities, or in the chapters we discussed this week, multiple disabilities, various handicaps that really involve a lot of accommodations, those were not available back in the day. When I went to middle school in the 80s, the severely handicapped kids were always in a different classroom or even a different school in some circumstances. So I think one of the positive things about today and social media culture is the awareness that children seem to have today in acceptance of these disabilities. When I was younger, I think these individuals were kind of sheltered, not in a regular school or classroom environment, definitely. So I think what I could do as a teacher to help in that transition is make sure that when these students are participating in the general education population, that their peers have an accepting attitude, and that comes through education and knowledge about the disabilities that their peers from the special education classroom might have. I love the fact that with inclusion, when I have taught in schools in previous years, to have severely autistic children or children with cerebral palsy participate in the regular class, or even just be observant if they weren't vocal or able to physically participate. I just noticed that when the teachers are more acceptant of having these students in an inclusive environment, the children feed off that and learn from that and what is being modeled to them. So, as a teacher, what I can do is be comfortable having these kids in my class, look out for them in providing them the best education, and model that to the students around them so they're accepting of students with severe disabilities as they enter the workforce or are adults in life. If they've grown up with these kids in their middle school environment, I think they're going to be more accepting of them in the workplace or sharing jobs or whatever element that they tend to be together. The next question was the light bulb moments. What do I plan to do in my classroom to help my students with vision impairments? I have yet to know of there being visually impaired students at our very, very rural school with under 350 students, kindergarten through 12th. I've been in this education environment for almost 35 years. What I would do in the classroom would be to implement the things we learned about in the chapter, from Braille to the assistive technologies, manipulative devices. I've always wanted to learn how to use an abacus, if I'm saying that correctly. I would implement the strategies that we've learned in class. I would use the extended core curriculum and make sure that these students were getting the supports and accommodations they needed from other services, like the mobility and operation that we learned about in the chapter. for ADD, health impairments, and physical disabilities are all topics that I'm very passionate about, is what you said. You said you have untreated ADHD, and your question is this something that we could use in a transition plan for students who are 16 years or older? ADHD doesn't have a category in IDEA, and even though recent laws have allowed them to be classified as other health impairment, it does affect a student's education. The self management tools on page 337 are definitely something that I believe should be implemented into the classroom setting. I will be utilizing all the skills and teaching techniques and strategies from this textbook. Being a new teacher, I think I will have to try on some of these strategies and see if they're effective for the students that I have. Review figure 12.1. So I did that, and it was talking about traumatic brain injury and the 5 stages of grief. Do I think that they're going to be aware if I've experienced it or believe it to be a solid model? Yeah, we lost my son-in-law 3 years ago today in a very tragic drowning accident, and I saw my daughter go through extreme levels of the 5 stages of grief, and I learned more about them and applied them to her life and recognize them. I do not think somebody with a traumatic brain injury would possibly be capable of understanding those areas, and maybe they will feel them or experience them, and they could be led with therapy to understand the stages they're going through. Because they're definitely going to go through those stages of grieving the person they were if they have an awareness before the TBI. But I don't think that in the moment or right after the recovery period and they begin in their education process, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to be aware of those stages until after they've experienced them, as a lot of people don't in dealing with death. Sorry, I went over a little bit. I hope that's okay.